Welcome back to the Learning Python series. In the previous video, we walked through the setup from zero to a working environment to run Python code. So make sure to watch that video first to be ready for this one. In this video, we will talk about variables and data types. These are essential programming concepts, and it's one of the fundamentals in Python. By the end of this lesson, you'll be more familiar with the basic data types used in Python and the concept of variables. Let's start. What are variables? In school, if you've studied algebra, you already have dabbled with the concept of variables. If x is 6 and we have a mathematical equation that goes like x plus 4 equals 10, we know that x is just a placeholder for a value that would make the equation equal to 10. Similarly, when we use variables, we're instructing the computer to store something for later use. Let's try it using variables with our Hello World example. To start using a variable, we first have to define them. In programming, we call it initializing a variable. To initialize a variable, we specify its name. This is always the left-hand side of the expression. Here, we specify the name as greeting. Then we use the equal sign. This is called the assignment operator. Whatever is on the right side of this operator is what we want the value to be. So this is our expression, greeting equals hello world. What's happening here is we're instructing the computer to keep that hello world value inside the container called greeting, so that when we call greeting, it knows what we are actually asking for, which is what's inside that container. We can see this in action when we print the greeting variable like this. Print greeting, now without quotation marks. So the output will not be greeting, but what we assigned as greeting, which is hello world. This is a really simple example, but take a look at this. Going back to our algebra example, x plus 4 equals 10. That x variable could be 6, but it could also be 3 plus 3, 3 times 2, 2 plus 5 plus 1, and so on. And like the variables in math, variables can contain different and longer values, and it makes it easier to just call it by its variable name x. The power of variables lies in its reusability. Imagine if we had not just hello world, but a whole paragraph like this. Now imagine if we had to print and output it in our program 3 times. We see immediately how our code gets clunky and unnecessarily large. And after a few more print commands of the same, any programmer would get confused, and with good reason. Now look at this same code using variables. From several lines down to just 3 lines of code for printing. Clean. And that's why variables are used. So far, we've been putting words and paragraphs into our variables. In programming, we call this type of value a string. Think of it as a string of characters. There are actually several other values that we can assign to a variable. We call this concept data types. And it's a way for the computer to categorize values. Different data types have different uses, and this helps keep the programming clean and predictable. We already know about the string data type. It's always enclosed with double quotation marks or single quotes. The next ones are number data types. We call it integer and float. Here are some examples of integers. And here are examples of float. What did you notice? Integer data types are always whole numbers, and float data types have a decimal point value. Number values have 2 data types, and these have different use cases. Integers are always whole numbers, and this applies to cases, for example, when selling tickets or items, where there can never be 2.4 tickets or 1.9 items in the cart or in checkout. And float works for when the need for more precision arises, like when checking the price for checkout, $10.99, or time, like 4.5 minutes. You'll notice as well, numbers are not ever comma separated, like 8,000. To initialize an integer, only use whole numbers, zero, or negative numbers, like these ones. To initialize a float number, just add a decimal point at the end. Let's move on. Sometimes we have a need for a value to only be one or the other, yes or no, 1 or 0. This is when boolean comes in. This is useful for keeping track of, for example, is 5 plus 3 equals 8? The only answers are yes or no. Is the booking reservation paid? Is 4 less than 2? The only possible answers are yes or no. The wording we use for boolean is true or false. Take note that these are case sensitive. So is 5 plus 3 equals 8? The answer is true. Is the booking reservation paid? The answer is true. Is 4 less than 2? The answer is false. Here are some examples of variables with the Boolean data type. Naming variables for Boolean values follows this convention where we started with is or has, where the expected answer is obviously a true or a false. The last data type is the none type. This is used to represent an absence of a value, like greeting equals none, result equals none, chosen number equals none. This is used in cases where the value is not there yet. Same with the Boolean values true or false, it needs to be in the same capital N, lowercase o-n-e. You'll notice how I've been naming our variables. This is a convention that is applied to most Python code. Lowercase descriptive variable names separated by an underscore, this convention is called snake case. So, you could not use periods, commas, forward slashes, and other symbols. It's important to note that variable names cannot start with a digit. This will result in a syntax error. 4 equals 4. But this will not. Word 4 equals 4. And another rule is we could not use reserved keywords. You've already seen some of it. It includes true, false, and none with the exact case. These are already used by the programming language to represent other things. You could technically use print, true, false in the lowercase, true, false in the uppercase as names, but it's strongly recommended to avoid this. Better stick to snake case and good descriptive names. Alright, that's a lot. So we've learned about variables and data types, string, integer, float, boolean, and none. Now let's have an exercise. I have a few variables here, and you have to tell me what data type is this. What data type is this? The answer here is integer. Did you get it? Great. Next, how about this one? If you answered Boolean, then you got it wrong. The answer is string. Remember, whenever values are enclosed by quotation marks, even if it's a number or similar to the Boolean keywords, it is still a string data type. And this one? What is this? The answer here is float. Alright, did you get a 3 out of 3? That's great. If not, then you can go back to the lesson and watch back to learn it again. That's it for this lesson. Now you're better equipped with working with variables in Python. There are more data types that have more specific cases, but these primary data types are good for now. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon for the next lesson. Like this one if you learned something, and use the comment section for discussion. Until the next one.